Hi, I'm Mike Bain from Christian Voice New Zealand. In the last decade, Christian bookshops have been awash with end times prophecy books. Authors like Jonathan Cahn, Perry Stone, John Hagee, Joel Richardson, Mark Hitchcock, even David Jeremiah all wrote books outlining the end is nigh. A decade on, in the end time section of bookstores, you'll still find these same names along with a raft of others with updated end time discussions. Now, not for a minute am I mocking them, but never have any of them written or said they knew that the world as we know it was going to end. But honestly, there came a time when I think even students of eschatology were over it. I mean, how many times, how many end time predictions can we live through? You know, someday there might be an actual person who accurately predicts Judgment Day. If they do, it'll be a fluke. And sad to say, it wasn't the quasi-scholarly elderly pastor Harold Camping who crisscrossed the US with the date of May 21, 2011. Now, much to Camping's wife's disgust when May 22 arrived, Harold realised he'd made an error of judgment, but not to be deterred. He made another prediction, and you guessed it, wrong again, Harold. I think it was about this time when Mrs. Camping put a foot down and said, enough. Harold, like Cahn and Hagee and the other people we mentioned, they were influenced by comparisons with today at the end to the time when God himself said enough and opened the floodgates of heaven and he let it rain for 40 days and 40 nights. Now, with good intentions, these watchmen, except Harold, were careful not to set dates because they were aware of some very important facts. Clearly, the burning question of when is answered by Jesus. Matthew 24 says, concerning that day or hour, no one knows, not even the angels in heaven, nor the Son, but only the Father. But he did give the apostles an indication. In verse 37 it says, as it was in the days of Noah, so it will be in the coming of the Son of Man. For in the days before the flood, people were eating and drinking. Now please note, there's no mention of a vaccination certificate required for any of this, but they were marrying and giving in marriage up to the day Noah entered the ark. And they knew nothing about what would happen until the flood came and took them all away. That's how it will be with the coming of the Son of Man. Quite clear, you'd think. But there's another important fact about the timing of the end. In the days pre-flood, what was the task God gave to Noah? If you said build an ark, you're only partly right. But while building the ark, Noah and Noah's wife, Noah's family, and their wives were steadfast in their belief in God. There were no murmurings, no dissent. There wasn't even a Mrs. Camping to tell Noah to stop. Their actions spoke volumes to everyone as a witness to their belief that the earth and every living thing apart from who and what was on board the ark would be destroyed. As in Noah's day, people mocked when you tell them the end is nigh. Likewise, Jesus talked of his Father's will to put an end to the wickedness, the lawlessness, the self-indulgence, the sinful, and did I mention the godless culture we see today? But you know, it's not an easy ride. If we're to survive, we have to be like Noah, and we've got to do some work. You see, in the Olivet discussion with his apostles, Jesus spoke of the Composite Sign, you know the one, where he said, nation will rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom. There'll be famines and earthquakes in various places and so forth. And later on he said, and all these things will be seen in one generation. Now many, and I mean many generations of Christians have lived through end times when they believed the end was just around the corner. They looked to the sky, but hey, no sign of Jesus. So what's missing? What is it that we're missing? God gave Noah the job to build an ark. We, you and I, like Noah, have been given work. And just as Noah endured, our work won't come easy. There's an old saying, when the going gets tough, the tough get going. And you're going to have to be mentally tough because it's not easy to swim against an outgoing tide. Jesus said in verse 9 of Matthew 24 that things would be rough for all his believers. There, he said, then you'll be handed over to be persecuted and put to death, and you'll be hated by all the nations because of me. At that time, many will turn away from the faith and will betray and hate each other, and many false prophets will appear and deceive many people. Because of the increase of wickedness, the love of most will grow cold, but the one who stands firm to the end will be saved. Okay, so what is it that we have to do? Well, Jesus went on to say in verse 14, preach the gospel. Preach the gospel of the kingdom to your own world. If every person who says they believe does so, it'll be a testimony to all the nations, and then the end will come. So here's my question to you. What have you done today to further the work of the Great Commission Jesus speaks about in Matthew 28? Who have you told about God's forthcoming kingdom? Is your light still shining, or has it dimmed because you've allowed yourself to be wrapped up in the foliage of today's culture? I said at the outset that I wouldn't mock the likes of Kahn, Hagee, Stone, Hitchcock, Richardson or Jeremiah, or anyone else who acts like a watchman on the city's walls who draws attention to the ugliness surrounding us. Through their writings, though, they've made it possible to shed light on how wrong this world is and highlights God's forthcoming kingdom. Harold Camping? Harold's mistake was putting a date on the end for which he was mocked, humiliated and discredited, just like Noah and the early prophets we read about in the Old Testament. I, for one, wouldn't mock Harold, but you must admire his courage and his tenacity. His prediction of May 21, 2011, was just wrong in so many ways. He made a few more by not listening to the sound advice from his wife, and then he went on to set another date. But Harold selflessly drew attention to what will be a catastrophic event, which will catch many by surprise. But back in 2011, what was everybody doing? What were they talking about? They were looking to the sky. It's up to us now to ensure that we must fulfill our task. It's not that we have to build an ark or anything like that. All we are being asked to do is, at the very least, tell someone about Jesus Christ today, about his love, his mercy for all who accept him. You know, it's so simple. Be bold like Harold. Let nothing or anybody else stop you. Tell somebody today. You owe it to them.
Thank you for listening. For more information, jump online to christianvoicenewzealand.com.